We are now 7 weeks into the season, and it's time to give you some updated rookie rankings from the 2024 class. We'll talk about things that we hit on, and of course, things that we missed on as well this year. Now, it's early in the season, but this is where things stand as of today. In Dynasty, we don't want to be too reactionary, but we also don't want to react to new information that's valuable for us to react to, right? Let's start with tier number 1. Jayden Daniels is my 101 if we were to redraft the rookie class. Quite frankly, he's my number 1 quarterback in Dynasty right now. You know, this is a player that we drafted pretty much everywhere. If we ever had the 101, we moved back to the 103 and either secured Neighbors or Jayden Daniels. I have no stock of Caleb Williams. I have no stock of Marvin Harrison. Not because I don't like those players. I love those players. But we just felt like the tier 1 was so big this year. So that's why we moved back as much as we could. And we have so much Daniels. I mean, the guy is not Lamar Jackson. He's not better than Lamar Jackson, but I mean, as a passer, he certainly is. He's one of the best passers in the NFL as of today, has the rushing upside. Of course, the injury is a concern at any time. We just saw that with the rib injury, but he looks completely good to go. He's actually been very smart if you watch him play. He's not been taking too many unnecessary hits. He's been getting out at the right times, sliding at the right times. It's been really good to see. And man, him and Terry McLaurin are on a mind meld right now. It is so fun to watch. Imagine what this team could look like if they trade for a Deontay Johnson, if they get someone in free agency next year. They're very clearly going to be looking to add to their wide receiver room. And Daniels is, I mean, he could be the most valuable player in Dynasty at some point. And if that's not today, it could be very soon. All right, moving on to Malik Neighbors, my 102. What else could you have possibly asked for from Malik Neighbors? Before he went down with the injury, he was leading the league in targets. He was on pace for like 200 targets. Now, I know he's just coming off a rough game, but man, I mean, this guy has shown you everything you could possibly have wanted to see out of a wide receiver prospect like him. He was on the Jamar Chase level for me in my prospect reviews when we did the scouting grades. And I mean, it's been great to see him fully break out. I know a lot of people decided not to draft him because of the landing spot. And ultimately, we're going to talk about this a lot in this video, but it's another reminder that you believe in the talent, you believe in the draft capital. Don't worry so much about the landing spot. But man, if he's not a top 5 wide receiver in your Dynasty rankings, I don't know what you're doing, right? At number 3, let's talk about Caleb Williams in the same tier. So look, if you still want to put Caleb Williams 101, I don't blame you. You can do your thing. I still think he's going to be an incredible quarterback for the rest of his career. But ultimately, Jayden Daniels is such a good passer, such a good rusher. I just think his upside is higher. But Caleb Williams, man, really finding his own, really figuring it out there in Chicago. It has so many great weapons around him. They're starting to use DeAndre Swift in the air as well, giving him more layups. It's great to see. All right, here's the first miss I would say for us so far, 7 weeks into the season. Brock Bowers. All right, it's time to face the music. I did not have Brock Bowers this high in my rookie rankings before the season. I'm not going to come on this video and lie to you and tell you this is exactly what I thought Brock Bowers would do. No, I didn't expect Brock Bowers on the Las Vegas Raiders to be the number 1 tight end in fantasy football through 7 weeks. I didn't anticipate him leading tight ends in targets through 7 weeks. I didn't anticipate him having 15 more targets than the next tight end in fantasy football. He has 60 targets. Trey McBride is second with 45. The guy is on another level. He's great after the catch. We shouldn't have overthought it, honestly. He has 477 receiving yards. That's over 100 more yards than the next player in George Kittle at the tight end position. Now, to be fair, George Kittle is actually averaging more points per game than Brock Bowers, but so far on a points per game basis, Brock Bowers is a tight end 2. Definitely shouldn't have overthought this. Now, we liked Brock Bowers a lot. We loved him as a prospect. We just hated the landing spot. We didn't like the Raiders. We didn't like the quarterback situation. We didn't like Devontae Adams there. I personally didn't anticipate him getting traded mid-season, but of course he did. I'll have to hold my L on that. Now, to be fair, the players that we had ahead of Brock Bowers were Drake May, Brian Thomas, and I still feel like those are very good players to build around. But of course, when it all comes said and done, this is the ultimate positional advantage. And if you were in on Bowers and you took him at the 104, the 105, congratulations, because you have found the tight end 1 in Dynasty for the foreseeable future for a long time. And I'm not going to pretend like I didn't miss on that. We should have had him higher in our rankings. I'll be better next year. That's on me. Moving into tier 2, let's talk about Drake May, who I did have ahead of Brock Bowers. And honestly, look, I know it's early, but that could still pan out. I mean, that really could. Drake May right now is averaging over 20 points per game. He's thrown at least 2 touchdowns in both of his starts. Now, he's had a pretty decent matchup versus the Texans and versus the Jags, so I can't read too much into it. But the guy doesn't even have a good weapon to throw to yet, and he's already looking this good. He's rushing the ball really effectively, just like we saw in college. So don't be surprised if Drake May jumps Brock Bowers at some point because of Superflex formats. But at the moment, I do have to put him one spot and one tier below Brock Bowers. Next player we'll talk about here is Brian Thomas Jr., who I also had ahead of Brock Bowers in my rankings before the season started. To be fair, if you had told me 7 weeks into the season that Brian Thomas would be the wide receiver 8 overall in fantasy football, that Brian Thomas was averaging 15.5 points, that Brian Thomas had 4 touchdowns through 7 weeks, I probably would have been like, yeah, okay, you know what? The Brian Thomas over Brock Bowers take looks right, but ultimately Brock Bowers just went absolute sicko mode. The guy was on X Games. I mean, what can you do? But Brian Thomas Jr. looks like everything we thought he could be and more. I mean, this is basically a young AJ Brown, kind of what we predicted, what we thought he could be. I'll be honest though, even myself who loved Brian Thomas Jr., I didn't expect him to be this far ahead as a route runner. I thought he had a lot to go as far as like technique at his route, specifically, you know, at the point of the snap. But man, he's already beating people downfield. He's one of the better deep threats in the NFL. He was tracked on GPS data as the fastest play in the NFL, one of those touchdowns versus the Colts, if you remember that a couple weeks ago. But he looks like everything you wanted him to be and more. All right, 15.5 points per game. I mean, the guy is a superstar. He's averaging more than DK Metcalf right now. He's averaging more points per game than Mike Evans right now. He's averaging more points per game than CeeDee Lamb. And Trevor Lawrence is kind of the perfect quarterback for him right now, as crazy as that sounds. Trevor is willing to throw and chuck the deep ball up for him. He's their favorite weapon in the red zone. He's their favorite weapon if they want to do play action. I mean, he is everything you want it to be and more. And yes, I do have Brian Thomas ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, go ahead, laugh at me in the comments. Am I being too reactionary? I know it's Dynasty football. I know there's going to be a lot of people upset with me at this point, but what you were dreaming of Marvin Harrison being in his rookie season is not coming to fruition yet. The reason everyone drafted Marvin Harrison ahead of Brian Thomas and ahead of Malik Nabers was because he went to Arizona. He had Kyler Murray as his quarterback. And of course, the name Marvin Harrison Jr. carried a little bit of weight. I mean, this is one of the best college wide receivers we've seen in the last 5 years. It's not worked out. And it's not all on Kyler Murray. Marvin Harrison is dropping simple passes. He doesn't look as explosive as he looked at Ohio State. And I'm not giving up on him at all. He's still a tier 2 rookie for me. But I can't, in good consciousness, put him in tier 1 just because he's Marvin Harrison Jr. And this is something that we talked about a lot this preseason, that we had Nabers and Marvin Harrison Jr. in the same exact tier before the NFL draft. I thought Nabers was a better athlete. Marvin Harrison Jr. was more refined, but ultimately the athleticism is really showing for Malik Nabers and it's not showing for Marvin Harrison Jr. And he and Kyler Murray are just not on the same page. Guys, right now, Marvin Harrison Jr. has 43 targets on the season with 20 catches. Think about that for a second. We've got a catch rate of 46% right now. And yes, it's a little bit on Kyler Murray, but it's also on Marvin Harrison Jr. He is not figuring it out. Now, I would not sell high on Marvin Harrison. This is still someone that I want to build around long term. There's no way you could go trade for him off my teams. But ultimately, we have to just recognize that right now, Brian Thomas Jr. looks like a better professional than Marvin Harrison. And that could totally change. But right now, that's not the case. And funnily enough, you'll probably watch this in a week or so. And Marvin Harrison probably just had a huge game versus the Chargers. But right now, this is where I stand. You can roast me in the comments if you want. That's okay. But it's not anti-Marvin. It's just pro-Brian Thomas. All right. We took an L on Brock Bowers. I'm going to take a W on Bo Nix, okay? I know there's going to be plenty of people out there who are going to hate on me for this. Bo Nix doesn't look good. He's not been accurate enough. But Bo Nix is a quarterback 13 in fantasy football through 7 weeks. I still think he can develop. People forget that he's a rookie quarterback. I think that completion percentage will go up. And friendly reminder, he is throwing to Cortland Sutton. There is no one at tight end worth mentioning. His running back room is an absolute mess. His offensive line has been up and down. He has more touchdowns than Patrick Mahomes and less interceptions than Patrick Mahomes through 7 weeks. He's got Cortland Sutton, Devon Vele, Troy Franklin, who we'll talk about soon. I love Troy Franklin, and that could continue to develop. But I think people aren't giving him enough credit for what he's done 7 weeks into his career on an offense that was just looking like the worst offense in the NFL with Russell Wilson last season, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take a victory lap. You can clown on me if you want in the comments, but Bo Nix, what people underestimated was his ability to rush the ball. 75 yards last week versus the Saints, 61 yards the week before. He's averaging well over 35 to 40 yards per game. That gives you such a safe cushion on a week-to-week basis. You can see that Sean Payton absolutely loves him. I think they'll continue to build with Bo Nix in the future. All right, moving on to tier 3, JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy, another name that I had ahead of Brock Bowers in my rookie rankings. And look, like full transparency, I'm being honest with you. Let's be honest with each other. Who knows what JJ could have done if he was healthy, or how we would view him if he was healthy, or if he would have won the job. I know Sam Darnold's playing well, but will we have had those conversations? Would JJ McCarthy have had a shot at this point? We know he would be stepping into a great offense. And still, JJ McCarthy can step in next year, be in this great offense, and overtake Brock Bowers in dynasty value. But at the moment, I will hold my L. He is a tier 3 guy, and unfortunately just got injured. What can you really do about that? Next, we'll talk about Jonathan Brooks, who we haven't seen play NFL action yet. Hopefully that changes this or next week. Still believe in the talent, still believe in the draft capital, and clearly this offense you can run. See what Chuba Hubbard has done, right? Roma Dunze is next. You know, we did ask the question over here on the channel when Roma Dunze went to the Chicago Bears. We asked the question, is this year's Jackson Smith-Njigba? We made the comparison to having the same offensive coordinator that JSN had as a rookie in Chicago. And unfortunately, right now, it looks like that's the case. Super talented player in a decent offense, but is nowhere near the first or second target, the first or second read for his quarterback. Still believe in him long-term, would not suggest selling him, but you're going to have to wait for Keenan Allen to move on to a new team. Next, we'll talk about Ladd McConkey, who on a yards per route run, all the metrics, looks like he's going to be a superstar. The issue is this team is not throwing the ball very much. We need to see that change. I'm not sure it will with Greg Roman, but if they ever do need to throw the ball and their offense changes, he's going to be a superstar. Xavier Worthy is next. Look, Xavier Worthy is not a name that we are very high on. I don't have any stock of Xavier Worthy. When it came to the 110 to the 112 this year, I drafted names like Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas over a name like Xavier Worthy. Now, to me, Xavier Worthy, and I know not everybody's going to agree, everyone kind of crowned him the next Tyreek Hill. It didn't make sense to me. Xavier Worthy laterally does not have the quickness, the twitchiness, the make your man miss in a phone booth that a Tyreek Hill had. To me, this was more the long-term Hollywood Brown replacement. That was my comp for Xavier Worthy. And right now that feels kind of accurate. We'll see. Without Rashee Rice, they could get him more involved, but it seems like they have to rather than want to, right? Last name in this tier is Trey Benson. I don't see a reason to move Trey Benson up or down these rankings just yet. We always said it was a 1-year wait. James Conner's on the last year of his deal. When Trey Benson has had limited opportunities, he's looked good. I'm going to just keep waiting on him to have an opportunity in this offense. All right, moving on to tier number 4. Michael Penix Jr., kind of same thing with Trey Benson, right? We didn't think it would happen instantly. You got to give him time. Kirk Cousins' play right now is up and down. So I'm still going to believe in him long term. He's going to have Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts to throw to at some point. I just don't know when that is. But in rebuilding teams, he's one of the best trade targets out there. Now let's talk about Slick Ricky Pearsall. We thought there would be an Ayuk trade before the season. That didn't happen. But unfortunately, Ayuk just tore his ACL. He'll be out for the entire season. There was talks about them moving on from Deebo Samuel. So in the offseason, they might have to move on from either Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. But what we know now is there is an opportunity. There is now an open window for Ricky Pearsall to step in and establish himself as a valuable wide receiver in this offense, an offense that is desperate for a wide receiver to step up and make plays. So I really am excited for Slick Ricky. You know we loved him on this channel. Let's see if he gets a shot now. All right, let's talk about 2 running backs, Tyrone Tracy and Bucky Irving. The reason I have Tyrone ahead of Bucky is because I see a pathway where Tyrone can become the starting running back for his team. With Bucky, I just don't see Rachaad White going away. And now Sean Tucker is also involved. So on a week-to-week basis, it might be inconsistent, but we did like Bucky coming out of Oregon. And now, the player I'm the most excited to talk about on today's video, Jalen McMillan. All right, if you've been on this channel, you know, this is my guy. My favorite player in the NFL draft. Multiple occasions this offseason, I said whoever drafts him will get the steal of the draft. And as unfortunate as it is for Chris Godwin to go down with that injury, it does give us an opportunity to see exactly what Jalen McMillan can do straight away. Baker Mayfield is playing some of the best football of his career. Chris Godwin is out. McMillan is very good in the slot. I think they'll put McMillan in the slot. If not Sterling Shepard, let's hope it's McMillan. And I think he'll have a chance to break out in year one. Guys, if you were like me and in the third round you kept targeting Jalen McMillan, we are now getting to find out earlier than anticipated if he is that dude. Now, yes, I had McMillan over Polk. At this point, I don't think anybody can disagree with that, right? As far as pre-draft grades. Okay, Blake Corum and Jalen Wright finish off this tier. Two guys who are waiting for their opportunities. Two guys who I think will be more valuable this time next year. You know, it's not uncommon for a Sean McVay running back to have to do their time. Clearly, Kyron Williams is the dude there, but I think we'll see Blake Corum develop a bigger role over the course of time. And as far as Jalen Wright, I still view him as a long-term replacement to Raheem Mostert. So again, I see no reason to move him down my rankings. All right, into tier number 5. Starting off with Braylon Allen. Look, we were not big Braylon Allen guys before the season. I'm not going to lie to you. Myself and Badaki, we weren't big fans of his. I didn't really like his film. Full transparency, that was probably wrong. He looks like a very good player. But the issue is, and why I don't have him higher, is Breece Hall's the guy. All right? Breece Hall's the guy. And it looked like for a time there when Nathaniel Hackett was calling the plays that we could see Braylon Allen get 10 plus touches a game. But if you look in the last 2 weeks, Braylon Allen has been completely irrelevant since they made that change at play caller. In the last 2 weeks, Braylon Allen has 3 carries and 2 carries. It's been completely shifted back to Breece Hall being the workhorse in this offense. And it makes sense because Breece Hall is one of the better running backs in the NFL. So ultimately, I still believe Breece Hall gets a long-term contract with the Jets. And I still believe that Braylon Allen is a Charbonnet asset, as in great player, but never relevant unless there's an injury ahead of him. Ray Davis, you guys know we love sweet baby Ray Davis. He's starting to get a bigger role in Buffalo. Xavier Legette is stuck in a terrible situation. I don't know when the quarterback play is going to improve. Keon Coleman, all right? I took an L earlier. I'll take a W here. We were not big Keon Coleman guys, and I could be too early on this W. I'm aware. Keon Coleman just had his best day as a pro. Maybe Amari Cooper is exactly what Keon needed. We on this channel did not believe Keon could be an alpha number 1 wide receiver on his own. We felt like there was way too many flaws in his game. And that seemed to be true through 6 weeks of the season. Is Amari Cooper what Keon needed to break out? Are they going to change Keon's role? He shouldn't be an outside X alpha wide receiver. He's not ready for that in the NFL. Troy Franklin is next. Now, if you weren't a Troy Franklin guy, you were probably victory lapping the first, 5-6 weeks of the season. But he's starting to pick it up each and every week. He's getting more snaps. He's getting more targets. Had his first touchdown in week 6. Had his first game over 50 yards Thursday Night Football versus the Saints last week. I'm excited to see what Troy Franklin can do for the rest of the season. We have a lot of stock of him. Last name in this tier is Marshawn Lloyd. Look, Marshawn Lloyd hasn't had a chance to really do anything. He hasn't stayed healthy. But I still think there's an opportunity for him to have a share of this backfield when he's healthy. Josh Jacobs is going to be the number 1. But I think this could be the Packers trying to recreate David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Clearly, Marshawn Lloyd is no Jahmyr Gibbs. But we've heard very reliable names like Daniel Jeremiah in the past compare Marshawn Lloyd to DeAndre Swift. I could see a Walmart version of DeAndre Swift once Marshawn Lloyd is healthy. Unfortunately, he's also in a situation where unless there's an injury to the guy ahead of him, he won't be the guy for that offense. But I still think he's a talented player. We just need him to stay healthy. All right. The last tier we'll go through pretty quickly. And ultimately, there's so many rookies I could have talked about today, but we are on a time crunch. So Jalen Polk can't catch a cold. All right. He was a 3rd ranked Washington wide receiver for me in my pre-draft rankings. I feel vindicated. We'll see if that's true. Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell was one of those names where everyone said, Zach, you're going to take the biggest L in the world on Adonai Mitchell. And respectfully, everything we thought would come true is happening right now. Anthony Richardson is not a good passer. And Adonai Mitchell is not the second option in this offense. He's not even the third option in this offense at times because of Alec Pierce. So in an offense where you can't rely on your quarterback and you're getting, what, 3 or so targets per game that aren't even good targets, when does that change? Do they move on from Anthony Richardson? Who's the next quarterback? But Pittman signed long-term. Josh Downs looks legit. I just don't know when it gets better for Adonai Mitchell. Let's talk about some tight ends. Jatavion Sanders, who had his best career game just recently. Ben Sinnott, who finally got into the end zone recently. Eric All, who is taking over the tight end 1 role from Mike Gesicki in Cincinnati, a name that we really liked in the 4th round this year. And then let's talk about Jermaine Burton. Burton really hasn't had a shot. He's had some weird reports with his team. I still want to roster him. I'm still excited about him. He's a taxi squad name for when T. Higgins moves on next year. Very talented player, just hasn't had a shot yet. Jacob Coing, with the Brandon Ayuk injury and the Deebo Samuel situation and CMC being out, he might have an opportunity to show something in this offense. And then Kamani Vidal, who looks like the RB2 in Los Angeles with the Chargers. But of course, if J.K. Dobbins stays healthy, it's his backfield. Look, there are so many other names I could have mentioned today. Audric Estime comes to mind. Isaac Horrendo comes to mind. Malachi Corley, Javon Baker, Malik Washington, Spencer Rattler. We could have talked about Theo Johnson, Luke McCaffrey, but ultimately I just couldn't put those guys ahead of the other names here. And these are going to change, right? I know right now in week 7, week 8, we think we know exactly what these rookies' careers are going to look like, but in 8 more weeks from now, this list could look completely different. All right. Maybe I've given up on players too soon. Maybe I've taken victory laps too soon. We will find out, in the next 2 to 3 months, right? But I appreciate you guys for watching this video. Do me a favor, smash that like button to show some love. Subscribe if you like the content. And the last thing I'll say is if you don't have a free account on Flock Fantasy yet, definitely go get one. Use a promo code LAND at sign up, and you will get a free account, expert consensus rankings, the trade calculator, and the team analyzer. And also, if you want to get a team review, check out the pinned comment. You can get a review from us. Maybe you don't know what to do right now. You're in the middle of competing or rebuilding, or you're 3-3, or whatever the case may be. You need some help. Check out the team review link in the pinned comment. We can help you create some better Dynasty teams. I appreciate you for watching. We'll see you soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.